Hey guys, tonight we saddle up for a journey across wind-blown grasslands, sun-bleached mountain passes, and eerie, echoing deserts. You're not watching a warlord ride out to conquer a city. You're not tracking treasure or secret scrolls. You're a Mongol mailman, and your job is to deliver a satchel full of messages from one end of the empire to the other, preferably without losing a boot or getting eaten by wolves. You're up before the sun even thinks about stretching. The inside of your felt yurt smells faintly of yak butter and yesterday's fire. The wind outside sounds like a low whisper, teasing the fabric. You pull on your thick boots. One has a weird bend now from riding too much, and reach for your sash with its leather pouch of dispatches. Your horse waits outside, breath steaming in the morning chill, and he already looks like he's judging your life choices. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment with your location and what time you're falling asleep to this. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You swing into the saddle and nudge the horse forward with a soft cluck of your tongue. It's quiet out here, just the rhythmic thud of hooves, the occasional whinny, and the far-off croak of some bird who clearly didn't sleep either. You're a small cog in a truly massive machine. This isn't just a pony express for kicks. This is the Mongol Empire, and they take their mail very seriously. The YAM, or relay system, stretches from Korea to Hungary. It's a spaghetti mess of horse stations, messengers, passports, and unreasonably durable dried meat. Genghis Khan might be remembered for his conquests, but deep down, the man loved logistics. Your orders today: carry sealed dispatches to a station about 30 miles west. Simple enough. Except your route passes through two rivers, one particularly sarcastic fox den, and a patch of terrain locals simply call that miserable bit. Perfect. As the first rays of light scatter over the plains, your mind drifts. You imagine the original architects of this system. How did they coordinate thousands of messengers without Google Sheets? Historians still argue whether Genghis personally designed the relay route layouts or just approved whatever his best logisticians drafted. You reach the first waymark, a crooked rock shaped suspiciously like a grumpy face. That means you're 10 miles in. You pause just long enough to sip fermented mare's milk from your skin. It tastes like regret, and then ride on. Your horse veers slightly left, heading toward a narrow animal path you've traveled before. You trust him more than your own memory at this point. The hooves hit a rhythm, 1-2, 1-2, and the step rolls out before you like a crumpled green carpet. At one point, you pass a group of grazing camels. One blinks slowly at you, possibly judging your pace. You're not racing, but you're expected to maintain decent speed. In its heyday, a relay rider could cover over 200 miles in a single day, thanks to the well-placed stations. You're not quite that ambitious. A hawk soars above you, tail feathers twitching. Some messengers used birds for sending shorter messages: pigeons, hawks, or even, for reasons still unclear, trained crows. But you're old-fashioned. You like your dispatch in a leather pouch, maybe lightly smudged from rain and horse sweat. As the wind picks up and dust swirls low around your horse's legs, you hum an old courier song. It's mostly about saddle sores and the joys of predictable trail food. You try not to think about last week when a fellow rider arrived with frostbitten toes and a letter so soaked it looked like a sad, historical sponge. You check your satchel again. Still there. 3 letters. One has an official seal shaped like a snarling tiger. You pretend not to notice. After a short descent into a valley, you pass 2 sheep herders arguing over whether it's going to snow tonight. One waves lazily in your direction. You nod back, resisting the urge to ask if they've got extra boots. Your current pair has started to hum when you walk. You climb out of the valley and spot a faint line of smoke curling from a chimney in the distance, your first relay stop. As the station comes into view, your horse speeds up, sensing rest, or snacks, or both. You grin, patting his neck. You made it through the first leg. The wind dies down a little as you slow to a trot, the station just ahead. Wooden posts mark the entrance, and a bored-looking attendant scratches his ear as you approach. He nods in greeting, squinting at the horizon like he's trying to avoid making eye contact with responsibility. You dismount, hand over the satchel for checking, and stretch your legs. They feel like they've been replaced by 2 sacks of grain. Inside the humble outpost, a warm hearth glows. Someone offers you a chunk of dried cheese that looks suspiciously like a rock. You take it anyway. Outside, your next horse is being readied, sleek, alert, and possibly more competent than you. You're only one stop in, and already your back is composing a strongly worded complaint letter to your ancestors. But this is the life of a Mongol mailman. Sleep is a rumor. Maps are myths. And breakfast is cheese that could double as a weapon. You take one more breath, deep and slow, as the landscape calls again.
You don't get long to savor the faint warmth of the station hearth. One mug of salty tea, somewhere between brisk and boiled sandal, and you're ushered outside to meet your new horse. This one is a stocky chestnut with an expression that says, "I've seen things." You relate instantly. The station master gives you a quick once-over and points down the path without saying much. That's typical. The people who work at yam stations are a unique breed. Part innkeeper, part stable master, part low-level bureaucrat, and fully over it. This next leg takes you deeper into the relay system, a Mongol innovation so efficient it gave even European kings mild existential crises. These outposts, strategically spaced every 25 to 40 miles, aren't just places to change horses. They're nerve centers of information. Letters, supplies, and occasionally people pass through here, all under the watchful eye of the state. Think less cozy Airbnb and more express delivery fortress with tea. You nudge your horse forward, hooves crunching over gravel and old pine needles. The landscape begins to shift. The open steppe gives way to rolling hills, dotted with dry shrubs and the occasional monument stone. You pass one carved with an inscription in Old Uyghur script. You can't read it, but you pretend to admire it in case someone's watching. The wind's picked up again. You pull your cloak tighter, the wool scratching pleasantly against your neck. Somewhere to your left, a marmot chirps like it owns the entire valley. Mongol riders used to track time by how many chirps occurred between stations. You decide to ignore this because you're pretty sure the marmot is lying. There's no road, not in the way you'd expect. No painted lines, no helpful signs that say, "Next station, 12 yams away." Just worn trails, stone cairns, and that vague, unsettling confidence that your horse knows more than you do. Still, you ride. You've got a pouch of messages, and Mongol law takes mail delivery seriously. Very seriously. Losing a state dispatch could earn you some truly uncomfortable consequences, like demotion, fines, or getting sent to deliver scrolls in Siberia. A soft drizzle begins, speckling your saddle and nose. You mutter a quiet complaint to the sky, which of course ignores you. Mongol riders didn't stop for weather, or fatigue, or existential crises. Genghis Khan once said, probably while pacing dramatically in his tent, that information was the lifeblood of empire. So if you're tired, tough. Take a nap on the next horse. You think about the logistics again. How the Khan's men built over 1,400 yam stations, stocked with tens of thousands of horses. How the network let riders travel from China to the Caspian Sea in under 2 weeks. That's faster than some modern shipping companies, and they didn't even have bubble wrap. Historians still debate how uniform the system really was. Some argue that quality varied wildly. Plush beds and good soup in one stop, cold dirt and grumpy dogs in the next. Others claim the strict oversight from imperial inspectors kept things fairly consistent. You think both are probably true. Like today when you're handed a horse that looks like it did push-ups for breakfast and a saddle that definitely smells like regret. As the terrain levels out again, you catch sight of smoke ahead. Another station. That was fast. Or maybe you dozed off a little in the saddle. Either way, you're there. The station is a low building surrounded by rough wooden fencing. Inside, 3 couriers argue over who took the last dumpling. A pot of something vaguely edible steams over the fire. The station master, older with a silver mustache so perfectly shaped it probably has diplomatic immunity, greets you with a nod and offers a scroll to carry westward. You tuck it into your pouch with the others. He checks your paisa, the metal pass you wear on a chain around your neck. It's bronze and oval-shaped, stamped with the Great Khan's seal. Like an ancient VIP badge, it gives you authority to demand fresh horses, meals, and shelter from any subject of the empire. That said, people aren't always thrilled to see it. Free stuff is rarely as free as the Empire claims. You're back on the move quickly. That's the rule. Arrive, eat something terrible, switch horses, and ride. Rest is a myth invented by poets and the elderly. A while later, you find yourself riding alongside another courier for a few miles. A quiet guy from the east who claims he once delivered a scroll from Karakorum to Baghdad in under 2 weeks. You ask him how. He shrugs and says, "Less soup, more saddle." You take that to heart. The path forks soon after. Your partner veers left toward the mountains. You go right into a narrow valley lined with gnarled trees that look like they're whispering secrets to each other. Somewhere in the distance, you hear a flute melody. Probably a shepherd or a ghost. You ride a little faster. You reach the edge of the valley as the sun dips low, brushing the sky with amber and copper. The third relay station should be near. You smell smoke again, this time from dried dung bricks. Delicious. The station is cozy in the way that a warm stable is cozy. You're offered a slab of meat that might be mutton or might be ambition. You chew politely, trying not to inhale the steam from a nearby boiling pot that smells like every spice collided at once. Before turning in, you check your dispatch pouch. Still there. Still intact. You run your fingers over the paisa, feeling its cool weight. This empire, this vast web of riders and relays, lives and breathes through that little piece of metal and the endurance of people like you. One day down, about 200 more miles to go. But don't worry, you'll get there. Probably. The next morning, you're up before the sun, though it's hard to say whether you truly slept or simply laid in a warm pile of furs, blinking at the rafters while your legs vibrated with the ghost rhythm of galloping. Either way, it's time to move. The station master greets you with a grunt and a chunk of stale barley cake, which you gnawed dutifully while adjusting your saddle straps. Outside, your next mount waits. A dappled gray with an attitude that screams, "Don't even think about petting me." You consider bonding, then decide you value your fingers. You head west into softer terrain. The wind has calmed and the trail winds between gentle hills like a silk ribbon unspooling across a tan robe. In the distance, you spot a string of yurts, smoke curling from their tops like polite questions. Somewhere in one of those tents, someone is stirring butter into salty tea and has no idea you're passing by with a scroll that might reroute a trade caravan or summon an army. The mundane mixes with the monumental out here. That's the magic of the Mongol relay. One rider, one message, endless consequence. You skirt a frozen creek, the horse stepping carefully on the frost-slick rocks. The sun peeks up, spilling light onto a herd of shaggy yaks nearby. One of them stares at you with disapproval. You nod back. Yaks are judges of character. By midday, the path rises again, leading you onto a high ridge with a view so wide you almost forget your thighs are on fire. You dismount briefly, stretching legs that feel like overcooked noodles. From up here, the empire feels infinite. Patchwork settlements, strings of smoke, distant shapes that might be riders or windblown shrubs. Historians still argue whether the Yam network relied more on centralized planning or local improvisation. Some say the Khan had tight control over every nail and saddle. Others believe the system thrived on the autonomy of its keepers. You decide it was both. Vision from the top, grit from the bottom. The next station is unusually large. 3 buildings, a paddock, and a corral of goats making it known that they do not approve of your arrival. A young boy runs out to take your horse. He's missing a front tooth and has the confident stride of someone who's wrangled more couriers than you've had hot meals. Inside, you find a wall chart showing regional routes in faded ink, all curling lines and obscure symbols. A rotund man with a braided beard offers you soup with floating bits you pray are vegetables. He updates your passbook, another scroll sealed and slotted into your pouch, and sends you off again, this time with a slightly better horse and a fleece blanket that smells faintly of cheese. You pass through a birch forest next, silver trunks flickering in the corner of your vision like ghosts in formal wear. The horse sets a steady pace, and for a brief moment, the rhythmic clop of hooves and soft rustle of trees almost lull you into a dream. But no sleep yet. There's still daylight, and you're behind schedule thanks to a goat-related delay. You remember something you heard back at the Capitol. Elite couriers, the best of the best, could ride 200 miles in a single day using relays. You, by comparison, are clocking in at respectable peasant with sore knees speed. But that's okay. This isn't a race, it's a living. As twilight thickens, you spot the next station in a valley bowl, smoke curling from a squat chimney. The place smells like boiling broth and horses, a strangely comforting combination. A girl no older than 12 checks your paisa with the gravity of a tax inspector, then waves you toward a stew pot that contains exactly one identifiable carrot. That night, you sleep in the loft above the stables. The horse below shifts occasionally, and once or twice you wake to the snuffling of something large and possibly furry outside. Could be a bear. Could be one of those judgmental yaks. You stay under your blanket either way. Your dreams that night are stitched from hoofbeats, scrolls, and endless hills. In one, you deliver a message to Genghis Khan himself, who responds by offering you a dumpling. In the dream, you accept it. In reality, you wake up biting your own sleeve. The next morning, you set off again. A cold mist hangs in the air, making the world feel soft-edged and secretive. Somewhere far off, an eagle cries out, probably laughing at your blanket cape. By now, your body has entered courier autopilot. Legs bounce in rhythm. Eyes scan the horizon instinctively for station smoke, rider flags, or weirdly shaped trees that signal a landmark. The road ahead narrows between two cliffs. Watcher's Pass, they call it. Local legend says a retired general once sat up there in a yurt, judging all travelers like a celestial customs officer. You survive the pass without divine smiting. Just more rocks, more hooves, more chilly wind curling through your hood. At the next station, you're greeted with a rare treat. Dumplings, real ones. Doughy, meat-filled, and only mildly burnt on one side. You savor every bite, even the crunchy edge. One of the station staff tells you about a message delivered last month. A scroll so urgent it required 26 riders working in shifts, galloping non-stop from Dadu to Samarkand. You nod politely and decide not to share that your last scroll was mostly about grain taxes. As you ride out again, the sun sets behind you, casting long shadows that trail like banners across the ground. You check your pouch, 3 scrolls now, all tightly wrapped and sealed. You don't know what they say, but you carry them like treasure. The night comes quickly, stars emerging one by one, pricking the sky like pinholes in velvet. You ride under them, each hoofbeat a heartbeat in the silence. Somewhere up ahead, another relay station waits. Another bowl of soup, another tired horse, another fire where someone will nod at you without saying a word because they already know what you're carrying. You are one dot in a web that stretches across the known world. And tomorrow you'll do it all again. You wake to the scent of burnt milk and damp wool, not necessarily in that order. Morning at this station begins early with grumbling horses, the clatter of tin bowls, and one very enthusiastic rooster who clearly has no concept of volume control. You groan, stretch your legs, and peel yourself out from the tangle of blankets and saddlebags that served as your makeshift bed. Today's path is said to cut through Riverland, which sounds pleasant, until you remember that Riverland usually means mud. So much mud. Thick, sticky, confidence-draining muck that clings to your boots and tries to steal your dignity with every step. It's going to be a long day. Your new mount is a shaggy, short-tempered bay with a limp in its left ear and a noticeable dislike for tall grass. The station master insists she's a real sweetheart once she gets going, which you interpret as she hasn't thrown anyone in a week. Still, you're grateful. Any mount is better than walking. Barely. As you trot along the river path, your thoughts wander as they tend to on these stretches between stations. You picture the sprawling maps the imperial clerks draw in the capital, filled with tiny lines representing you and couriers like you, stretching across Asia like threads in a giant tapestry. You wonder if your name is on one of those maps. Probably not, but maybe your route is. The river soon appears, snaking alongside your path with lazy confidence. You cross over narrow wooden bridges built by anonymous hands. likely the same hands that built this entire section of the relay decades ago. The Mongol Empire's genius wasn't just conquest after all. It was systems, roads, posts, protocols, a whole civilization of logistics. Historians still argue whether the Yam relay was copied from earlier Chinese or Persian courier networks, or whether it was a genuinely Mongol innovation. The truth, like your socks, is probably somewhere in the muddy middle. By midday, the rain starts. Not a dramatic downpour, just a steady drizzle that worms its way into your collar and whispers, "You chose this life with every cold droplet." You tug your cloak tighter and squint toward the horizon. Somewhere up ahead is the station marked only on your Paisa passbook as Low Station by Willow. You pass at least 3 willows, none of which appear to house snack-bearing attendants. Typical. Eventually you find it. It's more hut than house, leaning slightly like it's embarrassed by its own architecture. But there's firelight inside, and that alone makes it the most beautiful building you've ever seen. A man with precisely one eyebrow invites you in and sets about drying your cloak without waiting for permission. Mongol hospitality is rarely warm, but it's efficient. While your gear dries, he serves you a meal of pickled turnip and flatbread, which you devour like it's a royal feast. You learn that the station has recently lost 2 horses to wolves and 1 to what he refers to ominously as the marsh. You decide not to ask for details. He hands you a scroll pouch that's been waiting for relay, parchment, beeswax seal, and a faint scent of yak leather. You slip it into your satchel beside the others, now numbering 4. You don't know their contents, but based on their wear and size, you guess 1 diplomatic message, 1 order of goods, 1 criminal summons, and perhaps 1 heartfelt love letter from a lonely official to a concubine somewhere near Bukhara. You hope that last one makes it. Outside, the rain slackens, and your one-eared mare appears none too thrilled at the prospect of riding again. You bribe her with a dried apple. She accepts, begrudgingly. The next leg runs along a stretch of salt flat, oddly beautiful in its emptiness. It's quiet out here. Eerily so, just the muffled clop of hooves and the far-off cry of cranes circling above. You start singing to yourself under your breath, an old courier song about a rider who fell asleep on his horse and woke up in the wrong province. Around a bend, you spot a curious sight, a small cairn with a blue ribbon fluttering from the top. Travelers leave them for protection, marking safe passage or in honor of a good horse. You add a stone and whisper thanks, because out here you'll take whatever blessings you can get. The wind picks up again in the late afternoon. You wrap your scarf tighter, hunch in your saddle, and keep your eyes fixed on the distant smudge that might be the next post. It's getting colder. Your breath comes out in little clouds and your fingers are stiff on the reins. At one point, you find yourself reciting the contents of a merchant's inventory from 2 stations ago just to stay awake. When the next station finally appears, it's like finding an inn at the end of the world. The riders there were 2 brothers and their blind grandmother. Welcome you with a stiff nod and a bowl of something suspiciously fishy. You eat it anyway. You've stopped asking what things are. That evening, you find a spare bedroll near the stove and collapse onto it with a groan. One of the brothers asks where you're headed. You name your next 4 stops, plus the far west city that might be your final drop. He nods solemnly. "That's a good road," he says. "Not many bandits anymore." You pause. "Any more?" He shrugs. "They went south. Not enough traffic out here. Too many letters. Not enough loot." You chuckle. Only the Mongol Empire could make bandits quit from boredom. Before sleep takes you, you hear the blind grandmother humming an old folk song. The words are about stars, or goats, or maybe the moon. Your Mongolian isn't perfect. But the tune is warm, and the blanket smells faintly of lavender and horse. Outside, the rain stops. Somewhere in the darkness, a horse snorts softly, and you, one courier among thousands carrying the thoughts of an empire, let yourself drift into sleep. Your dreams are a carousel of hooves, wind, and scrolls with illegible writing. When you wake, it's to the unmistakable sound of leather being stretched and a spoon knocking gently against a metal pot. Breakfast, it turns out, is barley porridge and half a boiled egg. It tastes like glue and resignation, but it's warm, and warmth is worth its weight in gold out here. You set off again under a sky the color of dirty wool, clouds sagging low and heavy like the bellies of overfed goats. The air smells faintly of wet moss and wood smoke, which wouldn't be unpleasant if it didn't also signal a coming storm. You press on. Today's stretch is notorious, not for bandits or wolves, but for tedium. Miles of flat nothing. No trees, no birds, not even a decent rock to rest on. Just wind and dirt and the ever-present squeak of your saddle. You try singing again, but your throat is dry and your mood isn't up to anything with verses. Instead, you play a little game, guessing what's inside each sealed letter in your pouch. Maybe one is a letter of exile, banishing some poor fool to a northern outpost where the cows outnumber people 5-1. Or maybe it's an invitation to a wedding between two minor nobles whose names no one can pronounce. The Mongol postal relay was not just a system for military orders. Oh no. It carried marriage arrangements, tax updates, complaints about livestock quotas, and once, according to one gossipy station master, a single glove sent across 4 provinces because its pair was left behind by a very forgetful princess. Historians still argue whether the Mongol system prioritized bureaucratic necessity or imperial paranoia. It's possible it was both. As the wind rises, your horse begins tossing its head, unhappy with the sudden gusts kicking dust into the air. You pull your scarf over your face and press forward, eyes squinting through the haze. Visibility drops. The path turns uncertain. Somewhere out there is the station they call Stone Nest, a name that promises warmth, tea, and probably someone's foot odor. You hope to find it before your water skin empties. You pass a milestone carved with an inscription in faded Uyghur script, half buried in the sand. These stones were part of the genius of the Mongol postal system. Markers every so many li, originally placed by engineers who measured distance with rope, patience, and questionable math. You touch the stone for luck. Hours pass, and still no sign of Stone Nest. You begin to worry you've gone too far, or worse, veered off course. The flatness plays tricks on the eyes. Every distant shape could be a yurt, a rock, or a very committed sheep. Your mare is tired, her steps slower now, and your knees feel like they've been chewed on by history itself. Just as you're considering setting up camp among the tumbleweeds and accepting your fate as a minor ghost story, you spot movement on the horizon. A flag, fluttering on a crooked pole. You steer toward it like a sailor spotting land. It's Stone Nest, thank the ancestors. Though from up close it looks more like a stone puddle. The station is barely a shelter. A squat square building built of mismatched bricks, its roof slanted like it's trying to hide from the wind. But inside, fire, soup, and laughter. 3 couriers are already there, swapping tales of washed-out bridges and a runaway goat that apparently outran a dispatch rider for 27 minutes straight. They make room for you around the fire. 1, a woman with a gap-toothed smile and a spectacular mustache, asks where you're headed. You name your route. She nods and says, "They just repaired the rope bridge near Sleepy Hollow Pass. Don't fall asleep on it." You laugh. You hope she's joking. Dinner is boiled potatoes with something that might once have been meat. You don't ask. It's hot and salty and fills your belly like a soft quilt. One of the riders passes around a flask of fermented mare's milk. You sip. It's like yogurt if yogurt had a grudge against you. Before bed, you dry your socks near the fire and mend a strap on your saddlebag. The room smells of smoke, wool, and ambition. Someone's humming again. A different tune this time, sadder like a lullaby for exhausted warriors. You lie back and stare at the ceiling, wondering how many riders before you lay here, in this same spot, dreaming of rest and roasted duck. There's a strange peace in knowing that the relay doesn't stop for anyone. No matter how tired you are, someone's always behind you, and someone's already ahead. You are part of a living chain, stretched across mountains, deserts, and plains, all bound by hooves, ink, and a quiet sense of duty. Outside, the wind dies down. Your horse sighs in her sleep. You feel your body sinking not unpleasantly into the floor. You could stay like this forever. Well, at least until sunrise.